call the Waldport City Council meeting on March 11th, 2021 to order. We'll have a roll call, please. Roll call.
Mayor Howland.
Here.
Councilor Dunn.
Here.
Councilor Lambert. Here. Councilor Morris.
Here.
Councilor Booth.
Here.
Councilor Woodruff.
Here.
Councilor Townsend.
Here.
A quorum is present.
Very good. We have the minutes from the February 25th, 2021 council meeting.
I looked over them, looks good. I'll go ahead and approve them.
Okay, do we have a second to that motion? Okay. All those in favor to approve the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Okay, we're down to number 5, public comments. Are there any public comments? Okay, we don't have a microphone, it doesn't look like, so.
I think I have to be big enough.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Yep.
Question to whomever this would concern. Are you guys gonna have a bench out there at all? Have you considered that out in front?
Bench.
Yeah.
Out in front of this building?
Yeah.
Probably a lot of different things will change. I do think that we'll probably put a bench or some sort of seating area. I don't think any decisions have been made as of yet because we're still tacking stuff up on the walls.
Right, I'm with you. What I'm saying is, I would, if you would take considerations, I would contribute towards a bench in memory of my husband. So I'll throw that out at you when you do it, if you need some funding.
Well, it's very generous of you, thank you.
I'd be more than happy to contribute towards that.
Very nice of you.
I got a couple other things here. I wanted to thank the crew for getting the water main break up on Norwood fixed. Hopefully that will be the last time. I think it was the third time they've got to fix it. Also on the goals, I looked at your goals that you guys had, and I didn't see, but maybe you can correct me if not, that in the past, I've always brought up that we have such a huge array of experience here in Waldport, and I didn't see anything on there for recruiting volunteers to help the city with some of its projects, such as grant writing. I mean, after the thing that you brought up about the water, or anything like that. So when you go to pass that or review it or whatever, I would hope that maybe you would consider that or something like that. I would have liked to have participated in, well, I know I can't participate except or comment because I noticed that you guys had that after your executive session last meeting, and then you opened it up to the public again, which was kind of confusing to me. And with it not being recorded or anything, I have a thumb drive here that I'd like to leave. I'd like to hear that conversation. I think the only way I can do it is to get a recording of it. Is that, so if I left you a thumb drive, Rita, would you be able to just?
Unfortunately, I think we turned off the recording and failed to turn it back on. It was just did not last very long. We went over the minutes or went over the goals that were in existence because we had a previous workshop that was also available to the public.
Well, that was when you had the tour thing, wasn't it?
That was the morning, and then the afternoon was a public meeting.
I wasn't able to be here for that.
Yeah.
But I guess it wasn't clear to me that you were going to reopen that meeting. So do you normally do that, or I didn't understand why you didn't have the goals, or why weren't the goals discussed before the executive session?
So the goals was supposed to be a separate meeting, and because we ended up postponing the council meeting to that date, we truncated both meetings into that period of time. And so 2 meetings were combined into one. And so we needed to do the executive session and then allow the council to either continue or postpone the goal discussion till later in the evening, and we just continued.
Okay, that wasn't clear to me as being a member of the public.
Also,
I guess it's water under the bridge. But
right. Also, I would say that we had scheduled a hour-and-a-half break between the two. We were going to come back and do goals, but we had more time than we thought, and so we decided to smush it. But the result of that is also in today's packet as far as any modifications that we made because of those discussions. So it is,
I'm totally with you
Okay.
there, Councilwoman, but I guess what I'm saying is, I've never seen you open a meeting after an executive session. Does that happen often?
Very often.
Okay, I guess.
Matter of fact, it
Always.
virtually always happens.
Because we can't make a decision in
Yeah.
executive session.
Yeah.
so.
Excuse me?
We can't make decisions. We can talk about it, but anything we vote on, it has to be outside of executive session.
So the meeting always reopens after executive session. There's rarely actions after an executive session, so usually it's, okay, we open the meeting, is there anything else? And the meeting closes.
Okay, that was just very unfair to me, and I would have liked to have participated. But now that you've got Eric here, that's great, so I guess that's water under the bridge.
Okay. All right, we'll move on to our discussion items. A, COVID-19.
Really the big update here for everyone, and I will admit that Yachats News has more information than I do here on this. Apparently the county is planning on starting on the 25th with using the community center. I've reached out for them right now, and I hope to get more clarity, and I will provide that information to you on usage, timeline, etc. But I do hear that they are making noise that they will start on the 25th. I don't know what vaccines they'll be offering. I don't know any more information than that, so I'm going to refer everybody to the county at this point.
Okay, next we have ordinance for annexation of 1577 South Crestline Drive on behalf of the Colt, Coliax. All right. And it looks like we have an ordinance number,
We're looking it up right
oh,
now.
yeah, sorry.
Mayor, I have a couple questions.
Yes.
Um,
Commissioner. I mean,
So, is the reason that they want to come in is because of development? 'Cause most,
I cannot speculate as
Okay.
to their reasons.
So they didn't say, okay.
I believe that is the case.
Okay.
Based on the conversations that I've overheard, but I cannot be certain that that is
Okay.
their motivation.
and do we have an idea what that terrain is like? And
Yes, it's,
Oh.
At the end of Range
Right,
Drive,
but some of that
it goes down.
yes.
goes right down.
That's
yeah.
Far down, but.
Councilorman Booth, it says exactly, it will go
Looks like it
down.
goes down.
I don't know how swiftly, but it does, it is not exactly flat.
Okay. And what, would it come in as R1 or?
Yes.
Okay. Thank,
Seven,
Is this, I'm trying to like think way bigger, but is this the property that has the trail that goes down to the old dam? On the slough, right? Because on the slough, isn't there a property?
This is right at the top of Crestline.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it is this property, and I think that's what you're seeing past that orange there. There's
So it's
kind of
not actually a trail,
Well,
it's a PUD access road.
Ah,
And
okay.
on private property. So we have to be very careful, this is all still on private property. We are going to be working very hard to develop a trail point, a trailhead at the top of that due to the, and I'll talk about that at the next annexation that we do.
Okay, but so that is still kind of a big picture, would be that in a dream world, we would have a trail.
We
From Crestline
will, it's
down.
not even a dream world, we
Yeah.
will have a trail because we now own the property to do so. The question is just where it comes out and how we create a trailhead there. And that is still the big question.
Okay.
There is a potential, and I will say this publicly, there is a potential that if they do create this as a subdivided development, that we may be interested in a portion of it so that we could
For
create a
that.
trailhead on it, and that
Yeah.
road could become trail access.
That would be back.
But we don't know, they may charge $150,000 a lot, and at that point, we do have another access through another piece of property that we'd explore.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Rita, you said 774?
777.
Okay, sorry.
777, wow.
Trip sevens.
Let's go to Las
Wow.
Vegas. Do I do the three readings now?
Two.
Or after a motion? Or two readings? Two readings? Is that it?
Two readings.
I guess you
Okay.
can do it as many times as you
Sorry,
like.
it's been a while. It's one I would not off Sue, sorry. Okay, ordinance number 777, an ordinance pursuant to ORS 222.125 declaring the annexation of the land contiguous to the present city limits of the city of Waldport, said land identified on Lincoln County Assessor's Map 13-11-30-AB as tax lot number 00700. Ordinance number 777, an ordinance pursuant to ORS 222.125 declaring the annexation of land contiguous to the present city limits of the city of Waldport, said land identified on Lincoln County Assessor's Map 13-11-30-AB as tax lot number 00700, period. Okay, do I have a motion to approve this ordinance? Or, I mean, is there any discussion, I should say, I guess? Did you have any other questions?
No, I just was going to make a motion
Oh, you make a motion? Okay.
that we approve it.
Do we approve it? Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
All right. There's a motion and second to approve the ordinance. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ordinance is approved. Okay. Then we have the city parkland annexation, which is ordinance number 778. And this is an ordinance pursuant to ORS 222.125 declaring the annexation of land contiguous to the present city limits of the city of Waldport, said land identified on Lincoln County Assessor's Map of 13-11-19-00 as tax lot number 00202 and 13-11-30-AB as tax lot number 00800. Again, ordinance number 778, an ordinance pursuant to ORS 222.125, declaring the annexation of land contiguous to the present city limits of the city of Waldport, said land identified on Lincoln County Assessor's Map 13-11-19-00 as tax lot number 00202 and 13-11-30-AB as tax lot number 00800. Okay, is there any discussion?
I just had a question where this is.
That's-
I
I
mean,
wanted to know the same
I
thing.
took a magnifying glass.
Yeah, I
tried to
couldn't
pull
find
it
it
up, and I couldn't find any points other than it says Lint Slough, so I can figure that that's close to it.
So the first one is the orange one to the north, is the Isaac Walton League property that was just donated to the city in December. That is right adjacent to the sewage treatment plant.
Okay?
The second piece, which I know very, very well, is a 10-acre parcel that is at the end of the property that we just annexed in as well. It's also right at the end of, what is that, McNutt? It's right there? No, it's the McNutt property off of, what's the street that's right there?
The street, which,
That's right at the end.
Midge?
Off of Midge?
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
That's what I thought when you said that. I'm going, Midge is the only street there.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's right at the end of Midge. The properties are there, and then beyond that is a 10-acre parcel of very wooded land that we do have a access road in right now for PUD and for a water main, but that effectively is just simply a large piece of timberland. Both of those are now city property, because Isaac Walton League owned both and donated both. The intent is that we will be putting a trail through, well, both of them, frankly, The Lint Slough Trail goes through the one existing piece right now, up to the north. And then the intention is that we will tie in the Lint Slough Trail after we get a few more easements to this southern property. And then it would go up, as Councilor Lambert suggested, to a trailhead that we put it at the top. One of our options is that we continue, there's a road that's not Midge, it's a little access road. That portion of the road was actually already in the city limits, so we didn't incorporate it today, but that was actually part of the donation from the Isaac Walton League as well. At the end of that, there is an easement across a private property owner, and we could put a small parking lot there for a trailhead, or we could look at other access. It will greatly depend on the topography of how we get the trail down to the bottom. So that will be part of our effort in the trail and parks groups next year, is figuring out how that works, having some guys go up there, do some surveying, some engineering to figure out how we built the trail, so that when I bring it to you in the following year for trail dollars, we'll have that identified in a map.
And I became conscious of it because I live in Waldport Heights, and if there was an earthquake or tsunami, I'm gonna live on an island, and so this would be the best foot traffic for us to join you all up on Crestview. So that's why
I am working on some engineering right now to put a potential crossing to the slough. To be honest, it's a little bit of a pipe dream project for an ODOT connectivity grant, but that would be the tie-in to that trail loop. The ideal situation would be actually crossing the slough down towards the end of that piece, and then going up one of the logging road trails to the top of the Crestline, or of the Waldport Heights ridge. And then there's an access road that we could actually go down to Waldport Heights neighborhood, or actually potentially down into the Ekman Creek area.
Yeah, and then there's that other housing development, I wanna say, not Moffitt, but across.
Peterson Park.
Peterson Park.
Peterson Park.
And that's where it would end up.
Yeah,
So
and that would be, and a pipe dream, that would be fantastic.
it is kind of the long-term, I want to say 20-year plan right now, because it takes a long time to get all this stuff done. One of the things that I hope to bring to you as soon as we have negotiated kind of how that might look is actually a potential purchase of the city of the timberland that's right down there that was harvested about 10 years ago. If we can purchase that land and allow them to harvest the timber at some later date and preserve that for the city, it would potentially allow us, as we expand to the east, a huge portion of land that we could do both park and trail systems with, but actually potentially turn into housing as well.
Right. I hope the tsunami wakes up.
Yes.
Okay, any more discussion about the annexation? All right, do you have a motion on the ordinance number 778?
So moved. Go ahead, Heidi, you got it.
I'll make a motion.
All right,
And I'll second.
very good. All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is approved on ordinance number 778. Moving right along, we're going to have a discussion regarding establishing rates for business licenses for fiscal year 2022.
I guess I have one question on the short-term rentals. When we went through setting up the terms for those and some changes for those, I thought we were going to have a license fee for those.
This is where we do that.
Okay,
This is where we do that.
okay.
So, welcome to what is going to be a yearly topic on the agenda every year, and that's actually going to be a recurring theme. There are certain things that we historically discuss at certain times, and so one of the things that I hope to build out is a schedule that is very transparent for the public of this is the meeting we always have this discussion. So at the March meeting, we will always have, or we will always bring to your agenda, a discussion of the business license fee for the city. It can be a very short discussion, or it can be a very long discussion. In the last 6 months, we did make some changes that require short-term rentals to have a business license. this would be, if you don't want them to adopt the standard rate, this would be where you could set an alternative rate for short-term rentals within the city. We do have that provision. This would also be the opportunity for you to set rates for other services or other provisions that we have. Upon moving to do so, what would happen is we would then bring back a resolution to codify that at the next meeting, so that you would be able to then have thought about it for a little bit, but also then vote again on the resolution for that in April. That allows us to get that into the budget as well.
And last year, did the council forgive the business licensing because of COVID for a whole year, or how did that work last year?
We reduced
Postponed
the
it.
rate.
Yeah, and put it, the due date later, I think, right?
Yeah,
October.
we gave some allowances for
Yeah,
delivery at a
right.
later date. But primarily, one of the things that we did was we reduced the rate, and we also made some changes so that the rate discussion didn't have to be an ordinance piece. It could always be done just at this level.
And you seem to be suggesting that as, in general, we leave it as it is for this year, but I know each meeting is a new meeting and we can change our mind every meeting if we want to, but I thought we had kind of wanted, when we did all these short-term rental thing, I thought we had kind of wanted them to have a separate rate, but I don't remember if we got
Yeah.
to an amount.
So we had originally contracted with a short-term
Right.
rental management company
Right.
called Granicus. The idea there was that Granicus would provide a number of other services, and that we would set the rate, basically, of the short-term rental fee to cover
To
that
help.
cost.
Right, right.
Since that time, we've actually looked at the management and the code infraction issues with short-term rentals in the
Right.
city of Waldport, and found that almost all of them are exclusively outside of the city of Waldport.
Yeah,
The requests
right.
were coming mostly from Bay Shore and from some properties down to the south that unfortunately thought they were in the city. As such, it's not a cumbersome burden really to manage the short-term rentals.
Right.
And so we actually terminated the Granicus contract so that we
Right.
could receive those funds back. As such, it is really up to your discretion. One tool that allows potentially to encourage or discourage short-term rental use is the fees and costs associated with operating a short-term rental. So if the council so chose, they could have a larger short-term rental fee, and that might, a business license fee, and that might preclude some of the smaller short-term rental, the person who's just going to lease out their place on 3 or 4 weekends during the course of a year.
I guess I wasn't looking at trying to limit anything, I just was mainly thinking of simpler, like short-term rentals were $100 or $200, whatever.
Yes, that's-
Rather than all this other per employee and,
It would be very easy to do that.
yeah.
And from a business standpoint, we wouldn't mind that either.
Yeah, right.
So what you have here on the sheet for the rates is only for business, not for short-term rentals.
So right now, we now require short-term rentals. So this next year, short-term rentals will be required to fill out the current form that we have.
For all businesses.
Yeah, fundamentally all businesses. I will state that I did make an error that got quoted in the newspaper a while back. Contractors actually have to meet a certain threshold of business within the city before they're required to have a license. I had stated that contractors needed to have a license. They actually need to meet a fairly robust standard of business. I think it's $250,000 worth of work within the city before we can require them to have a city business license. And that's an exception to the rule that the state allows.
Do you know if the other cities have differing rates from their business license for short-term rentals?
Yes,
They do.
They do.
yes.
Do you know what those are? I mean,
I did not collect them, but they vary pretty widely. Many cities, in fact, have lotteries to allow short-term rentals at all. They have a set number of licenses that they allocate per a year, and you have a lottery to get into it. And if you don't get into it, you're not able to run a short-term rental. I would not advise that.
Right.
We're not there.
Yeah, we're not at that
Right.
capacity.
Not yet, anyway.
And we have some of the lowest cost, I mean, as a business owner, I'd stab myself in the foot, but we have some of the lowest costs. I mean, I have licenses in multiple cities, and I really think we should raise them. They're just really low. You know, I'm thinking like $65 minimum. I mean, that's right in the middle. I mean, I don't think anyone would have a problem paying that. I mean, $40 for your minimum is pretty low compared to all the other cities.
It's too bad we couldn't adjust it to how much people are making, because your business is very prosperous right now.
Right.
Where some folks aren't.
Is her mic off? I'm just kidding.
I don't even have. But yeah, that would be my concern, right? We have a lot of empty buildings, and I would like to see more businesses here. So however we can encourage that.
I think one of my questions was based on consideration of multiple factors, and I presume you have many, and that's why we didn't see some of those multiple factors.
Yes, there are, as Councilor Lambert kind of explained, or kind of hints at, there are businesses that are doing well during this pandemic, and there are businesses that are really struggling. We have businesses that have been basically set so that they cannot open effectively until just recently. We have businesses that are struggling because their staff are having to work remotely. And we've had businesses throughout the course of the year that we've had essentially prohibitions about operating at the state level. And so it, you know, when I considered whether we should raise it or not, you know, one of the factors that the city looks at is our cost versus our time that it takes to send people their business license and everything. We are automating that pretty dramatically this next year, or otherwise, in the analysis last year was, we should raise it because it costs a lot for us to process a business license in time and just overall resources. However, we're hoping that the OpenGov tools will allow that process to move online and greatly reduce our costs. And so looking at those factors, both the challenges to businesses in this last year and our potential automation reducing our costs, we said that those would kind of balance, you know, and favor leaving them unchanged for this year. I do think that we are overdue for a raise by quite a while, but that is really the purview of the council.
Well, if you waited till next year, it'd be 20 years since you had your last one.
That's
That's a pretty good scale.
I guess
Please, one.
one caveat I would offer is that one thing about the short-term rentals, as we can see from looking at our own financials and hearing all around the county, is that they're doing wonderfully. Room tax is up way above
The one on my
any
street's-
normal year.
The one on my street's pretty busy all the time.
So I will caution, I did just attend or Zoom into a meeting that was talking about that exact issue the other day. And one of the points that was raised is that as we do see vaccination rates increase and travel restrictions lift, we may actually see a downward pressure on that next year, because people have not been able to travel internationally. They have not been able to fly back east as much as they would normally do so. And once they're allowed to do so, we may see some regional, local travel actually go down.
But doubtful that they're going to go out of business even with.
No,
some
I'm not,
reduced-
I'm saying they may return to the level. So
Yeah.
historically, we have never seen numbers and revenue like we have this year. And in building the budget for this year, I'm not predicting that it stays at that increase. Normally, when you see an increase, you can pretty much assure that, okay, that's going to be consistent across the board. I'm actually trying to put it back 2 years, saying that, well, traditionally, this is actually where we've been with marginal growth. We'll probably see that marginal growth rate stay. And then we'll see what actually happens. It may be that we do see a consistent increase. People come to the coast, people love it here, and they've decided that they're just going to stay here. Or we may see that it drop back down as has kind of been predicted.
I'd like to propose that, and I'm not making this a motion, I'm just throwing it out there for discussion, that we consider a fee for short-term rentals, 100, 200, I don't know what it should be, but just throwing that out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would favor that too, I think.
Yeah, I'd say 100 to start off with at least. Is that kind of the consensus then?
Yeah,
Or do you think we
I
should
think
go?
we need to address that.
It definitely should be more than the businesses that are contributing to the community directly by being here, providing services to us.
But you could argue the short-term rentals bring.
They bring,
people with
they
money.
help everybody.
Right,
They
Yeah,
help,
want
they help
ice
Yeah.
cream
the
and
Right.
eat
business.
out.
Yeah, exactly.
If I may, one other consideration, we do get 10% tax revenue already from every short-term rental. That is not to argue against an increase or a set
Right.
rate for short-term rentals.
Right.
But we do get quite a bit of money in short-term rentals. It is beneficial in most cases to our local city and county.
Is that the same as the hotels rate?
Yes.
Yes, it's all the same.
Okay.
And we specifically matched it to the county so that there's no difference between the county rate and our rate.
So they're paying 10% to the county and then 10% to
No,
us?
the
No, no.
person staying.
If your rental is in the county, they pay 10%. If the rental's in the city, they pay 10% to the city.
But they
And
pass
there's-
it on usually to the
Right.
person
The-
staying.
Yeah, the people that stay.
Yeah, they don't
What are
pay
you
for it.
thinking? What kind of number are you thinking?
I would be fine with 100.
Yeah, that sounds like.
I guess my question is, and I think that's where Heidi's, how many rentals are we talking?
So we have approximately 30-ish rentals in
Okay, so
town.
30 and 100 would be 30.
3,000. Yeah.
$3,000.
Yeah.
Which is almost doubles our one, oh no, I guess not. 1350 is what we're doing off of our licenses.
We have quite a number of businesses. We do not have a huge number of short-term rentals. And of the short-term rentals, a number of them are already getting business license. So this is only going to be a handful that aren't.
And it would be the increase from whatever they're paying on the usual rate.
Well,
To
what I'd
100.
actually suggest is that we set the base rate for a rental at 100 and then allow them to go up from there. Because I think some of our hotels are probably in the $150 to $200 range as larger employers.
Yeah, it'd be interesting because to see like the size of houses too, because if we're talking like a 5-bedroom house versus a 1-bedroom house, the revenue is complete, you know.
It's,
Completely different,
you know,
but-
it really varies. We've got, in the analysis we did when we were working with Granicus, we have homes that are the large, 6-bedroom, 3.5 bath, the kind of the rare homes here in town, but that have been turned into multiple rentals. And then we have the kind of single rental where somebody's actually just renting out their back bedroom. And there are a couple of those here in town as short-term rentals. They don't get rented as often, because that's not the traffic, but they do get rented.
But predominantly, aren't they the camp, McKinley's, LC Resort, the hotel in town?
Those are the big ones.
Yeah.
Those are
I
the big
mean,
ones.
that's the predominant payers. I don't think the individual ones, well, we know of a few around, but I think the predominance is the bigger
So
operations.
the Vacasa
Yeah,
that we had to do the
Vacasa,
refund on,
yeah.
over the course of 3 years was $25,000.
Yeah.
I would say that we probably get equal to that, if not more, from them, during that time. So it's not a trivial amount of money.
Right.
And I will say that based on our numbers for this year, we should be pushing probably next year about $150,000 in transient rental income, even if it reduces the way I expect it to.
Part of that being the increase from KOA, right?
Yes, that's
Yeah.
almost entirely
Yeah, right.
related to the fact that, Mr. Riemann has generously offered to come into the city.
Where are we in that process?
We are done.
Okay.
We're done. There's a question, and I'm following up with the state right now. There's a question of when, in accordance with his annexation, we can ask him to start returning his revenue to us versus the county, and that will be a matter of this month or next month.
Okay, great.
But we're very happy either way.
Yeah. So you're suggesting we just raise the base rate rather than a separate?
I would suggest that what I would do is I would bring the base rate as the recommendation increase, so that
Okay.
For a short-term rental, instead of using the 40, they use 100 as the base, and then continue the calculations
Okay.
from there.
So you want to bring that next time for?
Yes.
Okay.
And staff and I will come up with a recommendation on that. 'cause
Okay.
Staff may
Sounds good
kick
to
me
me.
under the table here and say that that's not a good idea.
Rita, I can't remember,
Yeah.
do you mail out the business licenses? I have so many of them, I can't remember. Because I know a lot of them now, they're not even wasting paper.
Yeah.
They just email, I pay and they email me a copy and I print it out myself.
Well, hopefully with the new software, we'll be able to do a similar.
That might save you some time.
That is those lowering costs. That
Yeah.
is really what we hope to do.
I just noticed that I get a lot of them emailed now to me, so.
So would people be able to also pay online?
That is,
Hopefully.
it's kind of coming in really fast in terms of OpenGov, the new website, all of these new tools.
Yeah.
But that is absolutely the hope, is that they get onto an online portal, they go through the portal, they make their payment, they get the printout, and that staff's interaction is only that they notice that there's another line in the database.
Yay.
Yeah, I'm really enthusiastic about that.
Yeah. Great.
The way it should be.
All right. Safe source, no, excuse me, sole source.
So- So we would need a motion
Oh,
to
do we need a
direct
motion?
us to bring
Okay.
that back for a resolution for any
All right.
changes.
So we don't have any specifics though, so it's just a general,
Well, you did have a specific of moving the base rate on
to
the.
100.
To
Okay,
100.
but I thought you were gonna,
We'll massage that and come
Okay,
back
all
with
right.
something that should be palatable, but we would still need that general direction.
So you want a motion to raise the base rate, but you don't want to know the number today?
No, raise the base rate to 100, and then we'll come in, we'll show you how the calculations look when we bring it back to you.
So we can reevaluate it at the next meeting? Is that,
Seems kind of
Well,
strange to make a motion
hopefully-
if we're going to change it.
hopefully pass it because we need to, the time for business licenses.
I would
Well,
say
and-
it will make sense to you when we bring it back. What I want to make sure is you see is the full calculation formula.
Okay.
I feel hesitancy, not to be a pain in the butt, but I just feel hesitancy because I've seen some of these rentals that are in city limits, and I know they're charging $500, $600 a night, and they are being rented, and I'm hearing that they're paying 10% to us in taxes, but there's a piece of me that's just like $100. Like, what's $100? You know what I mean? 40's a steal.
Yeah, I guess so.
It still just feels really minimum to me, and so that's just where I'm at, and I'm just,
Well,
you know,
That's
I
what-
kind of wish that we had some data on like how much.
So
money
one
these
thing to
folks are
keep in
making.
mind is our cap on business licenses is $200.
Right.
So the largest employer in the city with the most employees, that is the max that they're paying.
But
Well,
we're
then
talking like Pioneer, I mean, we're
then
talking
maybe-
like a lot of employees, a
Well,
rental
right.
could have a maid, you know, maybe a housekeeper,
Yeah.
and that's the only employee they're gonna have.
well, maybe we should just do the max then, and it's a simple thing of just 200 for short-term rentals. And that's
Yeah.
yearly, it's not, monthly or anything.
And I was like looking for a staycation for myself here on the coast, and we're booked till May. Like,
Exactly.
everything is
Exactly.
booked. So to me, it's like like you said, they're not hurting. They're one of the ones that are doing really well right now. And the other piece of me keeps going back to thinking about, I saw some of the ambulance data where like I don't know what percentage, but like a very high percentage is for the tourists who are staying in the vacation rentals, right?
A majority, yes.
A majority, and so that's kind of where I'm like, well, then maybe that would help, right? Is if the vacation rentals, and it sounds like the people who are renting it are the ones who really are paying the fees, it's not.
Of course, yeah, that's part of your bill.
Yeah, so I guess I'm making a proposal to raise it to the
To
limit to 200.
200, okay, we have a motion then, I guess.
I'd
for
second
200. And a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the motion.
200 by Heidi, seconded by Sue.
For limit.
And it passed. All righty, moving right along. The next is the grant pursuit strategy proposed from Dig Deep.
Nope.
I think you skipped one, the meters.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm
Yeah.
just marking
The big
things right off.
Yeah, the big one.
So for the meters.
Well, we backed you up because you'd started on that. We backed you up, so.
That's right.
We confuse things.
Sole source for meters.
So this is a great example of how I can really want one thing and admit when I'm wrong. I worked very hard to collect multiple meter quotes over the last year under the direction that the council wanted AMI meters. I also brought to your attention last summer our issues with water leaks and the different methodologies that we could use to resolve those issues, because they do take quite a bit of time. And I thought I had found the perfect solution for that. What I didn't do a very good job of was listening to my public works and listening to the real world concerns of how some of this technology works and the investments that we had already made. In the course of doing our due diligence to close out and bring the contract to you last month, that was really brought to my attention, and I took a moment and we did a deep dive into this. And of the course of this, a technology that I really like and I still think is a really innovative technology, we decided was not a good fit for the city. We had some very specific reasons that it didn't. One of the biggest ones was that the non-replaceable batteries in the system meant that in 20 years, unless the city was Johnny on the spot ready to do this whole project again, the meters would just fail and be done. And that's,
Not good.
our current meters are 40, 50 years old, so we can see how well that has been done over time. One of the other factors was just the condition of the meters. The crew really made a compelling argument by smashing 2 meters side by side. The meter system that I liked was destroyed. The meter system that I am suggesting today, we'd have to buy a $32 register for, but could go back in the ground and the brass is capable of going right back in the ground. And then finally, the capability of having a battery pack that's remote from the meter and that the meter can actually operate analog without battery really did suggest that we needed to change the meter specifications that we were looking for. Along with that, because we've had a number of failing meters, we had actually been buying, because that's the supplier that we had been using, buying those type of and style of meters already. And so we had a compelling amount of expenditure already invested in one type of meter that we were going to have to replace. I will admit when I'm wrong, and I was wrong. This was the right way to, this is now what's presented is the right way to go. And I really do appreciate that my public works crew humored me, walked me through the process, and were very tolerant of me focusing on the leak detection and cost savings and staff time. So what we did is we went back to that distributor and we said, okay, when cities pick a single source, it really does tie us to a technology. It ties us to a system. And one of the things that was very nice is that they showed that in the future, their system does use an open technology standard that would allow, if they were to go out of business, and they won't, they're one of the biggest in the world, but if they were to go out of business, that the standard that the shared technology could be utilized by the next thing that comes along. They also showed that their meters did have a battery that could be replaced, so that when the batteries fail in 20 years, they can be swapped out for about a $50 battery change instead of a $270 meter. And the pieces are a lot more robust. All those factors weighing in, what I brought to you today is a resolution essentially ascribing, in accordance with Oregon law, us to pick a sole source meter. There are not multiple vendors that sell the same meter technology. There's usually one vendor for a region that the companies contract, and this is consolidated supply. So for us to make a purchase, we need to do a very specific process. What you're really doing is you're selecting a style of meter. And we'll have one, actually, I believe that's one sitting right there. We will have some good demos in our Public Works display here shortly of that type of meter. But essentially, we find that, they've got a remote antenna, we'll be able to do the remote work. They integrate with pressure reducing faults, and we actually, in terms of the leak detection, even had them put together a package that gives us 7 separate pressure monitors throughout the city. So that instead of us hearing about a leak when somebody sees gushing water, we'll actually be able to notice a pressure drop in an area and determine that, okay, we need to go and hunt for a leak. That gets us a little bit closer to my desire for leak detection. Not all the way, but it does address some of our biggest concern is how do we figure out where the leaks are. So that is kind of what I've brought to you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
So that's a big drawback, but I guess it doesn't look like we can avoid as far as the leak detection
So
part.
I put a huge emphasis on the technology for the leak detection. And what I think is that the bid that they brought to us provides the best compromise that still meets what we need in terms of the meters, which is, I think, to be honest, I think the meter solution is far superior to what the other system we were potentially considering. I think the meter system is far superior. I do wish that they had the integrated leak detection at the meter. I look forward to seeing in the future how Mueller or others try to solve that issue, but I think that we can address it with other tools.
I guess one of my biggest questions, because whether it's analog or digital, we've still been talking about the same amount of money of $300 and whatever it is, $1,000, down from, I think it was 1.2. I guess I would like an explanation of that because, whenever you hear somebody say, well, something costs 1.2 million, but we can get it for only 300, you go,
So
The thing I thought was, all right, do we have the low bid, or what are we doing?
yeah, why that big, huge difference?
So the previous costs were considerably higher for the meters. They also had to build in a separate installation. So this was part of a federal loan
Right,
package using
right.
federal dollars.
Yep.
So because of that, it inflated the costs in how the requirements were met for the installation. They had to pay bully wage.
Okay.
We're going to install these ourselves.
Okay,
But this product, because we were using federal dollars and using an outside installer, there was about $275,000 in outside
right there,
wage.
okay.
The meter, the AMI portion of that system was another $300,000. And then some of the loan costs and engineering costs associated with it added up to that 1.2 million. I will say that as much as I was wrong about the meters, this is something I do well.
Yes, I know you do.
I was able to really look at where the costs were, what the pieces we needed, and really negotiated down. I think we have a screaming deal on these meters here. There is an ORS statute, ORS 275B-310 or something like that, that says that if you do this, if you do sole source, and it's over $150,000, one of the things that you have to do is negotiate strongly to reduce the price. I think we have met that in spades.
Okay.
If we were to go back and look, we did very, very well on the product that we're getting and what we're getting it for.
And then I guess my other question was the public notice. If it's approved today, tomorrow it goes on public notice for 7 days,
Yes.
and it's reviewed by somebody that comes and says, I can do that better, and if they
So
can't,
here's what the challenge could be is that somebody come back and say, no, we can meet all of these standards. Now, we've done quite a bit of research, which is required per the statute. We've done quite a bit of research to determine that, most meter manufacturers don't meet all of these specs combined, don't meet our requirement combined, and that they can lodge what's called a protest. That is absolutely a possibility. I worked very hard to ensure that that's unlikely, but this is part of the state statute, is this is what you have to do. I believe that we've met the thresholds. I've sent it to our attorney so that he can establish legal sufficiency, which he did. I believe we've met the threshold. I am not necessarily worried about a protest. I am actually worried that I'll be able to figure out how to get it up on Orpin correctly tomorrow, but I am not worried about a protest. It may go up on Monday for a 7. We'll absolutely maintain the 7 days, however.
And my other one, I think it's the title.
Oh, the
Date,
Ashland.
Public notice first appeared on Ashland.
Ashland, yeah.
So we corrected that online.
I'm going,
So,
why would it go to Ashland when we live in Waldport?
Yeah, exactly.
so in order to make sure that it meant legal sufficiency, I looked at other examples. I copied the wonderful city of Ashland's example of this because they just did a similar program. I caught almost all of them, and after the packet was printed and sent to you all, I did catch that we left the Ashland on there
Okay.
and directed
I
the city
figured
recorder to correct
it
it.
was not going to Ashland, but
No,
maybe
Yeah.
I'm brand new and
Exactly,
No,
who knows?
The city of
right?
Ashland had a wonderful example on their website that I was able to copy.
That's a heck of a pipeline, yeah.
I understand city managers talk a lot. But
Yeah, right.
And the warranty period is comparable to what we've been considering before?
Yeah, it is the
Yeah.
20-year, it's actually longer than the other one we
Okay.
were considering.
Okay,
And that was
great.
another factor that we had to take into place. The other one, the batteries were not as, the longevity wasn't as long.
Yeah.
This one, the warranty is much better, and the compartmental replacement means that if something breaks, not only while we're waiting for a part, can we actually read it still? And the analog, once the guys saw the analog portion of the meter,
Yeah.
they were sold that piece alone. One of the biggest problems that we have is when the battery goes or something goes wrong, the meters, the new meters, you can't see turn. You don't see that, that rolling over of the number. And we have a lot of residents that feel like if they don't see that happening, that they
not
shouldn't be
working.
charged for water usage. This, if all the batteries died at once, we'd have to open every meter to read the number, but the number could be read month to month. It doesn't require that electronic component, which is, based on the number of trouble calls that we have, a really useful attribute.
And I do appreciate the effort that you put into getting the best prices for city things. I just needed to hear, about the details of it, just to be sure,
I am starting to get somewhat of a reputation.
Yeah.
Definitely.
People will stop taking your calls.
I called that rep today and got the answering machine, and I'm thinking that might be why.
Thank you.
So we need, what resolution number would this be?
1268.
1268. So is there any further discussion or questions? Do I have a motion to approve resolution number 1268?
I would move that we approve Resolution 1268.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Say nay. The motion is carried. Okay, now we'll do the discussion of grant pursuit strategy proposal from Digby. This is informational only.
So this is not necessarily the proposal that I'm going to suggest, but this is an example of the type of proposal that I think might be worth soliciting for. We talked at length last month about the need, actually it was just 2 weeks ago, about the large water and wastewater needs that the city has. And that it very likely will be beneficial to us to explore every single possible option we can. There are hundreds of different opportunities out there for funding, and there are a number of different grants and different programs, and it is challenging for any of us in the staff to go and figure out all of those. One of the things that we have done in the past, and this is an example thereof, is contract with a company that knows all the players, knows of most or many of those opportunities, and can put together a comprehensive package that explains to you, okay, here are the different grants, this is what the projects you have, these are what those projects apply to. So these 3 projects would want to go to this grant, these 2 projects would want to tie into this grant, and basically go down that list so that you can establish a plan to go after some of this money. This would be the first step in what would then be a series of, okay, we go this, now we need to hire a consultant company to actually go after those monies to the different programs. Again, this is trying to spend pennies to save dollars. You know, if we spend $100,000 on a consultant to go after, to use this report and go after those funds, and we save $10 million in the long run, you know, we've spent, you know, a penny to save $1. And so this is how we kick that off, is what I would like to suggest is that I'll bring to you some budget numbers to do an RFP to solicit companies like Dig Deep to say, this is what it would cost us, this is what the product would be, the end result product would be, so that we could get that information and then make an intelligent decision on which company we use to go out and solicit that grant project strategy.
So do these same companies then could be contracted to write the grants, or that's not their?
It absolutely could be. I mean, in all honesty, I expect that there are not a lot of companies to do this. Dig Deep tends to be one of the really good ones. I expect that Dig Deep will be the company that responds to the RFP and will likely be the strongest selection, and be the company that after they produce that, we could then contract with to go actually after that and put that together. That said, I don't want to prejudice us towards an individual company. I do think that, especially now with the new website coming on board, I'm going to use the RFP process a lot more for contracts, even that are under the $50,000 threshold that we're allowed to assign, simply because I do think there's a lot of value in competition. I think there's a lot of value in seeing what all your options are, and I want to be able to start presenting more of that to you. It's been an odd year with COVID, where we've had, you know, kind of an emergency declaration in place, and we've had to do things quickly on the fly. I really do hope that we get to a model that you're seeing the adverts for our processes more widely distributed, and that we get a lot more solicitation and bids for some of these things.
Okay. So we basically don't need to take.
You don't need to take, what I'm looking for here is any feedback or any concerns, any, you know, I think I'm headed down the right path, but this is, at the beginning, this is where you can steer me differently if you think we should
Right.
take a different tack.
So basically, confirmation that you are heading down the right path.
You are headed down,
Yeah.
you have to be, because you have to find money somewhere.
This is why you employ attorneys or accountants or other people with special skills and knowledge
Yes.
Right.
that we don't have to the same level that we need to go after big bucks.
Or even time
Or
to do
time,
so.
yeah.
The only consideration that I would ask is, with working in federal grants, there are organizations that work a lot with banks. And so they do a lot of the same work as this, and then they offer you great loans. So it would just be nice to know if, like, what portion of the contracts that Dig Deep have result in how many in grants and how many in loans. Because I think we're trying not to get loans, right?
Ideally,
Wouldn't it be
I mean, we
very
could go and
heavy?
borrow the money right now,
Yeah,
but
but I my experience is it's kind of hard to tell whose advisors are coming from which.
the nice thing about companies like Dig Deep is they're not affiliated with a financial institution.
Right.
And the financial institution ends up being, at the end, a very different process in terms of selection. So, you know, really, they make their money by encouraging you to go after loans, recognizing that you don't have the expertise, which they do, and then encouraging you to say, okay, let's hire you to go get the money. And we've used Dig Deep previously and been successful. Not as, Newport really got quite a bit of funds for their investment in Dig Deep. Our investment in Dig Deep paid for itself, but not tremendously. I mean, it absolutely, it was 4-1, but I really hope we can get that margin much higher. I don't want to spend $5 million. I want to spend, $500,000.
So do we know, I don't remember when they did the whole process for us last time, if they write the grant, then do they charge a percentage of whatever we get?
No, they
Or
have a
straight
fee,
time?
they have a fee whether you get the grant or not. You
Okay.
contracted with them to write the grant.
Okay,
And then they are successful or unsuccessful,
Okay.
but you've paid the fee irregardless.
okay.
But it looks like this initial contract is just to set us up with
Yes.
everything we would need to apply for grants and loans.
Right.
Yes.
It's
And like
information gathering, basically,
Yeah, this is, I keep asking for examples of what this looks like, and they're hesitant to provide that in depth. But mainly because if they provide me the examples I want, well, that's 90% of pretty much what they're probably gonna provide us.
They don't get their money.
Yeah,
We do it for
but recognizing that, I still think that it is likely, a product like this, whether it's from Dig Deep or from somebody else, is likely the way to start. Because we need to know how many avenues we have out there, what the timelines and considerations for asking for that money are, and what type of match requirements we're going to need in the long run, and to be able to jump in and start going after these funds. We've got one, for example, right now that unfortunately is not going to be able to wait for this process because we have a defined deficiency in our water treatment plant. It's about a $1.2 million project, and we are going to have to include the engineering in next year's budget because we have an obligation to actually turn in the engineering to correct the problem by early next year. While we will seek funding, and the hope is that because it's a deficiency, there are numerous avenues for funding that are available once you hit the deficiency level that are not prior, which I find amazing. It means basically you should go around and break everything and then you have it fixed. But we're going to have to do that. We're going to have to go for that money in those projects right away because we have a timeline that is pretty strict so that we don't get large fines from DEQ. So we're going to follow that timeline, and we have to essentially follow that timeline.
Is this a result of the big tank report?
No, that's the water system. This is the wastewater system.
Oh, waste, okay.
Yeah, this is the wastewater system. And part of that will come to you in the form of the wastewater master plan. Will come to you, wastewater facility plan. Every time I say master plan, DEQ gets grumpy. Wastewater facility plan will come to you for review at the next council meeting.
Sounds good. I think you've gotten your direction down. Go for it. Okay, next is the resolution declaring property surplus to the city need. 11 Costco Carports.
So I went out a little bit on my own because it was one of those things where if you didn't strike quickly, it would disappear. I had a conversation with our public works director when I started and was doing inventory of city assets. He pointed out the number of carport, shelters that the city had purchased a while back as part of our emergency supplies cache. One of the things that he expressed as a concern was that they were incredibly challenging and time-consuming to put up, and that they were very susceptible. Matter of fact, we lost one due to wind. It was set up, and the wind caught it and took it quite far away, and it's somewhere down in the slough.
It's in,
So that's been on the back of my mind, that we don't really have a good tent structure. If we get caught, if the tsunami happens, on a day like today, okay, it's cold, but it's nice outside. If the tsunami happens sometime when it's, in the winter, we could be in a lot of trouble. And we recently have set up a system where we can purchase through state surplus. Well, state surplus offered the other day for $3,500 2 DRAS units. DRAS units are a deployable rapid assembly shelter. They're basically a large octagon tent structure, a large air handler to provide heating and cooling, and a large generator all on a single trailer. They're designed for use by the Army to be able to set up field hospitals at a moment's notice. 6 guys can set up, or 6 people can set up this tent in about half an hour. My hope is that our public works crew will practice a couple times, and then we will do an event during the summer where we come and set it up in the open space so that people can see exactly how we do this and what the capabilities are. It also provides a generator, and by the way, the generator alone was worth getting the trailer, so that we can actually provide power to the, as needed, and or heating and cooling as needed. So it's really a cool unit. I did amend our request and filing with the county for the $2,500 match that we do typically every year, to say that that would be part of, we bought some MREs and we bought the DRAS unit. With the DRAS unit in place, it makes these hard to put up carports, I think, unlikely to be used. And the best utilization, I think, for them would actually be to sell them via surplus, and take that money and apply it towards the purchase of the DRAS unit. And that is what I'm recommending.
Any discussion?
Well, my question that I kept reading was, we have 11 of these units, and estimate will raise $1,100 by their sale.
Yes.
And I turn the page and I see the original value was $4,400 in 2015, 11 Costco Carports. The minimum you're going to take is 22. Is that for
Yeah,
11 of
there's
them?
a discrepancy there, I think.
Yeah, I'm sorry, that is a Scrivener's error on my, on the front page. It is $2,200.
Okay.
Okay, so that
That's
should be
better.
$2,200.
Yes, I
Okay,
expected.
so that
I-
matches the one that's on the second. Okay.
Yes, I think the
Good.
100 was, this would be the absolute, so in the past, we've sold items, we put them up for an auction so that we don't determine the price, the public determines the price. And that I would not, if they went below $100 a piece, I just wouldn't sell them.
That's what I was trying to do my
Yeah.
math there. I'm going, you're asking the minimum of 2,200, but you only asked for, yeah, I've done the recovery thing with the government. That's, you don't have a choice. They're going to get you what you get. Okay.
Yep.
That's the only question I had, was trying to make the math work.
Yeah, my hope is for $2,200. Actually, I'd love it if we got more, but I don't think we will, because the price on them at Costco has dropped a bit, so.
So is the quality though.
Yeah.
Really, like the blowing down in one storm, I think we got one last year, the year before last, and it lasted 2 weeks. It was like September, it wasn't even winter, so.
I will say our guys were not impressed with the one that flew away.
Yeah.
Good idea.
Okay. Do we have?
Can I have one more
Yeah,
question though?
sure.
But 11 carports, I would imagine, would hold a lot more people than the one unit that you have, so.
Believe it or not really. The DRAS unit, it's about 800 square feet. The carports are about 800 square feet. Little, it's not, there is a difference, but not much, and the carports are open. These are heated. The DRAS is heated or cooled. So I think it's a pretty good trade-off.
It seems to me like the DRAS unit would be like the headquarters, right?
Yes.
It would be a headquarters to work out of, where these would not.
So mostly, it wouldn't actually be a headquarters. Figure that you've got a ton of people sitting up at, let's just say up at the school area, and the school is unsafe because of large earthquake and whatnot. This would be something that we could set up, that we could rotate people through for triage, for medical care issues, and I think we've always counted on the fact that there are going to be people whose homes are nearby that can grab tents, that we're going to get a lot of outdoor food. I mean, we don't have a perfect solution, but this is going to be kind of the best we can do. I think the challenge is that these carport units are not very portable, whereas we actually have a transportation plan for the DRAS unit because it's on wheels. And that given the amount of time and people that we may have available, that we don't have a very practical way of getting the carports up quickly. Now, that's not to say that if we're there for a week, that the carports might not have been a bad idea. But I think we can look at large tent structures and FEMA structures as they come available instead. that might be able to replace those in the future.
Anything further, guys?
We have a resolution, so
Yeah, Resolution 1269. Do I have a motion to approve Resolution 1269?
I'll approve it.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second to approve Resolution 1269. All those in favor say aye.
aye.
Any opposed, say nay. The motion does carry. Now we have the revised goals for adoption.
So this just reflects the things that you asked me to either add or remove from the discussions specifically. Though staff and staff's husband made it very challenging to remove the dog park item. Looking at one council member here. We did remove that. We also went through and adjusted the other pieces, removed the splash park, and changed some of the language to reflect the support for the events, recognizing that some of them haven't asked for funding in the past. And I hope that this reflects kind of your final. One of the things that we realized is that normally we'd have just done a motion to correct it at the end of the last meeting. And to be honest, neither Rita nor I could remember whether we had actually done a motion. So we put this back so that we could codify it officially at this. Thank you. Memorialize.
Memorialize. Okay, anybody see any additions or corrections that need to be made?
Is it possible, under 3, under encourage development and growth, to add a goal of giving opportunities for volunteers, making opportunities for community volunteers?
Absolutely. Goals are living documents. They can be modified at any time at the will of the council to reflect whatever you'd like.
I took this as being a living, breathing document that, because there's things on here that I would have questions about, but when it gets to that, I'll have questions about it.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, adding that, do we have a motion to approve the goals?
Make a motion to approve the goals.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second them.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion, the goals are approved. Committee reports, Solid Waste Advisory Committee. Well, it's in there anyway. Do you, anything else to add?
I don't have anything to add, but
All
if
right.
anybody has any questions about it, I would do my best to answer them.
City Managers Report.
Okay, we do have, I'm going to start off with an add-on. We do have here a letter from Alana Miklik, who is just recently stepped down as the chair of the Parks Committee. And she's also a planning commissioner and has asked to be on the budget committee. And we do have an opening on the budget committee. So,
So we need to appoint her.
yes, thank you. I was like, so what does that now mean?
She's a very hard worker. I would definitely
Yeah.
make a motion to approve her to be on the
I won't
budget.
find anybody that is
Second.
All those in favor of putting her on the budget committee, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Say no. On the budget committee then.
So as a reminder, as I get into the report here, first budget meeting is in about 14 days. We are running a little behind due to the lack of the audit is really kind of hindering things. We're running a little behind. I will let you know at least, or I will try to let you know at least a week beforehand if for whatever reason we need to postpone for a few days the budget meeting. I'm really trying to keep to that schedule, but there are just some uncertainty in some of the base numbers that affect future numbers. Everything seems to be sorting out quite well. It's just without those base numbers, it's hard to make informed decisions.
Yep.
Can you tell me what the date was that you were
The
starting?
25th.
Okay, yeah, I'm gone that time.
So we may be a few days
Yeah, I'm
past
coming
that.
back the 6th, though.
Okay. Yeah, probably, I really hope we're not that far back.
Well,
The piece that's going to come at the end is the analysis piece. Really, what I'm going to try to do is be able to focus on the numbers so that we keep the budget meetings shorter than 5 or 6 hours. I think people's eyes tend to glaze over at the end of those type of meetings. We are, the 22nd is the date that we get our new website. I've started playing with it a little bit. It's very cool. I just wish the content was up. They are working hard at converting the content. I will say this, they will convert the content, and so it will be very similar to what was previously on our old website, on the new website. It will be then a process, and our city recorder will work very hard to be generating and creating new content to fill some of the gaps and to create our longer-term vision for what we hope to provide on the web. It should be, even at this, a quite enjoyable experience. We do have things organized in a way that will be very easy to access, and I think it will be very positively received. But things like bill pay is going to get better because we're going to go from our current bill pay to the OpenGov bill pay process. That may take a while as we integrate some of the different pieces. Some of the forms right now will still just be links to PDFs. Over time, those will become online fillable forms that you literally press a button and they get submitted into the city, requiring you not to have to print anything out.
Great.
We're going to work really hard to get this going as quickly as we can, but I'm very excited to have everyone start seeing it and using it on the 22nd. Code enforcement, obviously we've had some success with some of the cars. It doesn't mean success overall. We do have a number of cars that are mentioned to us on a regular basis that are outside of the city limits, that just border the city. We are still working on those. Basically, any of that type of thing that comes in, we do try to work on. We had one very upset customer the other day who lives upriver a bit and insisted that their Waldport address meant that they were in Waldport. I finally just took the code complaint to the sheriff's office because at the end of the day, they wouldn't hear that they weren't in Waldport, and that wasn't an argument I was wanting to have.
Have they looked at their tax bill recently?
You know, yeah. We had very few applicants for the accountant position. We will be relisting with a much more aggressive strategy starting next week, and we'll be raising the base salary a little bit. Two significant challenges here, and one I communicated via email. We have a housing shortage for houses that are long-term rentals, and so it's very challenging for somebody to come from a remote area to try to take the position. We had several inquiries about whether the position could be done remotely, and unfortunately it just can't, not at this point. The other thing that we're having a challenge with is just the number of people who are qualified and who have backgrounds in business and backgrounds in accounting and have municipal experience, experience with, city, state, federal dollars and grants is not as common. The last challenge is PUD just started hiring the exact same thing, $15,000 higher than we were. So,
In the same neighborhood.
so we are going to adjust a little bit to recognize that the position has evolved since it was hired 2 years ago, and that we're going to make it a little bit more competitive. And hopefully we will get an increased number of applicants. The applicants that we did get, we will keep in the pool so that they absolutely do get reviewed and do get an opportunity in the position. But we do want to see if we can't get more rounded applications. Yes?
Of those applications, how many were local? Or were any local?
I do not believe, having just cursorily reviewed them, I think of the qualified applicants that would meet our minimum requirements, none lived in the city limits.
How about the county?
I believe both live in the county.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, absolutely,
Right.
Oh, yeah,
absolutely.
They live in Otis, right? That's-
Yeah, well, I've done those kind of commutes, so.
You know,
So maybe-
and I think, you know, I was very happy to see both of their applications. And so us going back out is not a reflection on those candidates. It is a reflection on, this is an incredibly important position, and it has been made really clear to me how important over the last year. I would love to find somebody who will, you know, be in this position, grow through this position for, you know, 10 years, because the institutional knowledge that's required in this position is so important. And once they have that, I want them to document it, so the next time we never have to go through this again. I would love to go back in time. Donna was a wonderful accountant. She was with the city for years. And if I could do anything, it would be go back in time and ask her to write everything she did for a year down. Because there's so many little pieces that we miss, that just that after you've done it for a decade, you don't think, oh, I need to document it. And just little things that, oh, yeah, we have to do this is missed. So
Was she full-time, or was she?
Oh, yeah, she was full-time,
a
yeah.
full-time?
Yeah.
I will say, unless OpenGov magically makes, you know, finance a lot easier, full-time is just such an incredible piece. You know, I've been talking with a lot of other city managers who are talking about their budget process and how they're meeting with their accountant, and then their accountant's doing the budget piece, and then they're doing the analysis piece.
Yep.
I'm still stuck doing all the, and I don't want to say stuck, I am still in the budget creation process. I haven't even gotten to the analysis process. And the analysis is where I provide you good information, or hopefully good information about trends, about things to watch out for, about, you know, the kind of the background to why these numbers are the way they are, such that it makes it a more informed decision. I'm still plugging away at, okay, well, this number's got to be 50,000. Well, it was 60,000 2 years ago. Why is it different? These are where an accountant really comes into play. And we've got a wonderful person working for us. Ellen's fantastic, but she doesn't have the time to do that. She has time to focus on what she's doing. The
She
AP,
is part-time.
yeah, the AP, payroll, et cetera. That's what she's got time to do.
She's more of a bookkeeper.
Yes. We were hoping to get more out of our COG contract than I think we have. COVID, I think, had a big effect on that. I did ask the COG. The COG will be here next Wednesday, and we're going to go item by item through the entire budget for 2020 and 2021, so that in May, when we do bring you the budget, typically in May, we will bring you the budget, and we will also bring a budget transfer resolution. That is the cleanup measure that cities often do at the end of a budget cycle, that just moves all the money where it was supposed to have gone based on what actually occurred. We're going to bring you one for both 2020 and figure out exactly how to make that legal, and 2021, so that the next budget cycle starts off correctly. And that's, as we've been talking with OpenGov, garbage in gets garbage out. We want to provide the best possible numbers going into this new system, so that in the future, and because it's going to be very open and transparent, in the future, people are seeing real numbers, not numbers that we have to explain.
So is it possible that PUD has candidates, maybe that they're not looking?
I'm going to reach out.
Yeah.
I'm going to absolutely
Worth
reach
it,
out.
Yeah.
I don't know whether legally they can do
Number
that,
two.
but doesn't hurt to ask.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Seems with most of the organizations that I've worked with, our accountant has been over in the valley, but they haven't been full-time. So is that the piece that makes you feel like they have to be here in City Hall? Because you,
The interactions that we have with Ellen, who's here full or half-time right now, are so essential. It is an incredibly important piece, having the person here and having them be part of the team. It really is just an incredibly important piece. I think that there are positions that we don't see as often, but I can't think of a position that's here that couldn't be here. You know, because of the necessity of being as part of that team, having discussions on the fly, making decisions about how things work. It would be very challenging. Even over Zoom, I think it would be challenging.
it might be different if their books were in a better place.
It very, you know, and I think right now, this is where we are. In 4 years, once OpenGov has been vetted and we've been using it for a while, it may be a very different situation. You know, it very well may be that in a couple years, we don't need to have a full-time accountant. It's just right now, it is very apparent that we do. And my hope is that if we get somebody in that position, and in a few years, we're not needing them as in the accountant piece, we can increase their time in grant processing and grant writing to compensate and really allow us to explore a lot more options, which is something we've always said was an important aspect. The PUD, I told you a couple weeks ago that they had refined their mapping. We now have a more firm idea of exactly what the differential will be. We will lose about 10% or about $5,500. We are, however, gaining about $1,000 from the lighting. So net result is we'll probably be down about $4,500 from franchise fees from previously, which is a bummer, but it accurately reflects what's happening. So insurance is through the roof.
Yeah.
You know, there's very little we can do about that, but it is quite a bit higher. We've had a series of conditions and issues over the last few years that have just continued to contribute to higher insurance costs, and we've been told to expect at least 15% again this year.
And I think it's across the board. We're a nonprofit in South Lincoln, and we're $500 more than we were last year, and we haven't done anything different, so.
Yep.
I think that's a given for all insurance.
Yep, it was the lament at the League of Oregon Cities meeting this year. It's just, there's nothing CIS can do. There's nothing anybody can do. This is just where we are. And then I included a letter of introduction. Did I include? Yes, I did. From Tara DeBoy. And that basically just talks about the Cape Perpetua Collaborative. And at some point, they asked to come and talk, and I said, you know, we're really still trying to discourage that while we're not vaccinated, but by the summer, I think we'll have vaccination levels and whatnot where we'll be encouraging groups to come back and give us presentations again. I look forward to that, actually. No, that's it for right now.
Any other public comments, additional public comments?
I just have a question.
Sure.
For the council. To referencing the ordinance 777 that you guys passed today, it wasn't clear to me what the objective of the annexation was. Was it because they wanted to have sewer to that land, or can you answer that? It just wasn't clear to me.
They asked to come into the city. We said yes. I mean, that's,
No reason.
it was an unprompted request to be annexed into the city. I can't speculate to their reasons. They did not share them directly with me, and it is not reflected in their letter. They just wanted to come into the city. It happens. We had the Alcee Hotel came in, same way, unsolicited request to the city to come in.
Well, I can see more reason there, but I mean, I read, and then I listened to you, because I wasn't gonna say anything until I listened to you, and then you went ahead and annexed them without a reason. That just doesn't make sense to me.
We, you know, in all honesty, if people want to join the city and they meet the requirements, there's generally not a need for a reason.
As long as they're not on the other side of the bridge.
Yeah.
I mean, like, there's certain areas
If-
people want to have annexed.
If
there's certain areas-
there had been a negative to the city, a negative ramification, but they're already on city sewer because they're on Crestline. They're already on, I believe, city water.
So it wasn't sewer since they're already.
No.
'Cause I know there are some people that are on sewer that are not within the city limits. That was just a hidden agenda for me that as.
So
public,
I want to
see.
correct a misstatement I just made. So apparently they are not on city sewer currently. We have
Oh, they're not?
we have a lot of properties that are
Well, I
that
can
are out of
see
the
that
city
would
limits.
possibly be a reason, but
Yeah.
it didn't state it in there.
No, and they didn't indicate that that was something they wanted.
But Waldport Heights is in city limits and we don't have sewer access.
No, because we don't have sewer across Flint Slough yet.
Yeah, so I mean, that doesn't necessarily mean that was the motivation.
Honestly, I really don't want to speculate as to why. There are a number of reasons to come into the city that are beneficial to a property owner. I'm happy they did.
So they were not R1, but they will be R1.
So county zoning is different than city zoning.
Right.
However, their county zoning is similar enough to R1, and we have zoning nearby that is R1, such that they will transfer to R1. And we'll do that at a later meeting.
Very interesting.
Well, and obviously to overcome, because they'll pay city taxes now.
Yeah.
Right, I mean, I
So-
can see that, I just didn't understand their objective. And so that's why, I hope you can understand my question, maybe you can't.
But I saw that they didn't have a Waldport address. Their first home is somewhere else. So,
It's in Happy Valley, which is in southeast Florida.
yeah, so I mean, the property is bordering the city. Maybe in the future, they want to sell the property or.
So I can't speak to them. But what I will say is that my property was on the edge of the city. It was in the city, and it was one of the compelling reasons that I bought and developed my property was that I had access to city sewer. If I were them, it would not surprise me at all if their motivation is that they want to be put onto city sewer because it will increase the property value. But I don't know that that was their reason.
Yeah.
But there
But you,
wasn't a
but you
negative-
did tell them that for them to do that, it's gonna be at their cost.
Oh, yes, they,
'Cause
yeah.
that's stated in number 4,
That's
so.
true for any.
Yep.
Yeah,
Right.
so I'm kind of understanding the same thing, but there's a lot of reasons people do things.
Yep.
We certainly don't discourage people who
No,
want to come
in
to
fact,
the
we
city.
encourage most annexations because they're beneficial to the city.
From a
And-
tax standpoint,
Yes,
In general.
more importantly, in this one in particular, it's beneficial because it allows us to explore, it allows us to be providing services in that area to actually citizens in the city. One of the challenges is there are a number of places that we provide and spend quite a bit of money. And as a matter of fact, we're going to spend $1.6.2 million putting sidewalk essentially on county property. The benefit is it's to our schools are our citizens. It benefits everybody in the region, and that's what a city's really here to do. But it's nice that that will now be part of the city.
and you were looking at the trailhead there, but there was nothing in the ordinance.
It wouldn't be, it's
No,
because
it
we're
wouldn't be.
very far away from that being a potential.
Okay.
Okay. All right, we're ready for council comments and concerns. Councilor Dunn, do you have anything?
You did, I've seen in there now, no parking signs are gonna be up on Crestline?
That is what we've been told, is that they should be materializing very shortly.
Great.
I have nothing.
Nothing else? Councilor Lambert? Anything?
I'm just checking out the memorandum from the sheriff, and I think that that's really great, that we're trying not to put our citizens in jail and trying to have services in the community.
Yeah.
And I definitely noticed the presence of them. I think it's interesting that it says that we're half of the traffic stops in South County, but I wonder if it's because of the two major highways here, because I feel like they sit on 34 and on 101. I don't know if you guys know.
I noticed that they do sit on
Yeah.
them.
Yeah, so I appreciate the presence, because when I come out of Waldport Heights, people are coming like 50, 60 miles an hour through there. I've definitely noticed that slowing down in the last few months, so.
But I think it's natural that we would have most of them because we have those extra deputies that the rest of the South County doesn't have, so.
Right, because they don't have a is
Right.
this considered a station now?
Substation.
It's a substation, yeah.
And no one else has that, right?
Well, Lincoln City just
Right.
got one.
But I meant
Yeah,
like
South
Yachts
County, right.
or-
Yachts
No,
does not.
no.
Or Seal Rock or.
So
anyone south.
it makes sense that, more arrests and tickets happen.
One
here.
nice part about having Deputy Hans is he is our district deputy. And this week alone, and up till today, I was with the sheriff this morning, we've had 4 deputies in town. Resource officer was one of them, and there are 3 others. And they're not here for any one reason except they're showing presence in South County.
Yeah.
Because they've showed presence in North County, and they've shown presence in Toledo. So they're just showing presence. That's, The one thing that I can say with this report, and because I'm part of the community advisory group for this, for the sheriff, there's a lot of things happening in the world of law enforcement that are going to affect citizens. Because there's a lot of, and it's not because they did it, it's because they've been mandated by the state in so many different ways. So don't look at Facebook, but I do have an annual report from the sheriff, and it's amazing what's coming down the road, and these guys do a great job, guys and gals.
That's my
That's it?
only comment.
Okay, Counselor Morris? Counselor Booth?
I'm so glad that Heidi let me jump on her. That's all I have.
Counselor Woodruff?
I have nothing today either.
Counselor Townsend?
Nor I.
Counselor Holland passes. So we're done with that then. Okay, I guess we're ready for executive session. I'm gonna have to read some more pursuant. Persons designated by the governing body to negotiate real property.